So hi, Wynne. Thank you for joining me today. Today is Time to Talk Day, which is part of the Time to Change mental health awareness campaign. The theme this year is the power of small. So how small conversations about mental health have the power to make a big difference. So I thought we could have a little conversation today about mental health and see where it takes us. First of all, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and your experiences with mental health?
Of course. I mean, the power of small seems ironic when you're talking to me. I suppose I didn't realize I was prone to mental health issues until my marriage broke down a few years ago, and I just didn't have that ability to cope with the situation, and I was absolutely distraught. And then I realized that probably mental health issues have been running in my family a lot longer than I chose to care, really, both with, you know, my mother and my father probably a little, and my grandparents. So I just struggled for about around 18 months, and it was interesting for me, actually, because when I was talking to my friends about not just the situation with my marriage breakdown, but with the situation that I'd found myself in life. On paper, I had everything. You know, I had a good job.
Yeah.
I was on the radio every day. You know, I worked for Go Compare. You know, they were solid jobs, but actually the reality was very, very different.
Yeah.
I felt alone. I could feel alone in a room that was jam-packed with people. I could be in a bar or a club and just feel on my own. In places where I was working, you know, I'd be hosting to about 1,000 people, hosting a dinner, and just still feel very isolated. And for me, I guess the realization was when I went to see, well, I had a really, really bad Easter, I remember, and I'd had, suicidal thoughts, and my life didn't really seem to go in the direction that I wanted it to go in anymore. That I went to see a psychiatrist, and he said, "Well, look, I think there's a chemical imbalance here.
Yeah,
you need to address this with tablets." And so I just started taking the tablets. Of course, the thing about depression tablets is that they take 4 to 6 weeks to even begin to kick in, and longer to really work. So that was a struggle. But when they kicked in, I was then able to deal with the situation that I had in front of me, which was, you know, my life had changed, and I needed to make the best of this new situation that I found myself in.
Yeah.
And I found it tremendously comforting. I know this sounds weird, right? But when I was on air every day on Radio Wales, when I was talking to people for 2 hours or 3 hours, as it is now, every day, that was my escape. It was like I had the blinkers on, and nothing else mattered. It was just me and them.
Yeah.
And that was my salvation. And I suppose especially in the last year, where, you know, the world's been turned upside down and nothing feels in the right place anymore.
Yeah.
And we can overanalyze. You know, I've been talking to my own children about this. It's really easy at the moment, when we've got so much time on our hands. It's really easy to sit there and overanalyze every single thought that you have going into your head.
Yes.
And you know, I was overanalyzing it, really. And people ring into the show now. You know, I had somebody ring in last week or the week before, and they just said, "It's just so nice to speak to someone." And it's a tiny thing to do, is to speak to someone. It's tiny.
Yeah.
You know,
those small conversations.
Yeah, tiny. It's tiny, and it costs you nothing.
Yeah.
It costs you nothing to go next door, or to go down the road, or to pick up the phone to a mate and go, "Hi, mate, just thought I'd touch base."
Yeah.
You know, I've found my own friends in situations when I'll ring them up and I'll just say, for no reason other than, you know, "Oh, hi, I'm just touching base. How are you? Oh, thank God you've rung."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is those.
You might have not spoken to someone for a little while, or you know, your voice on the other end of the phone, then just asking them how they are, what they're up to.
Yeah.
them or made a difference to them.
And I think with guys as well, I mean, I don't want to be genderist in any way, but with guys, you say guys don't talk. I mean, I over talk, I do, that's my issue. But it's, you know, there's not a stigma anymore. There's no, I find no shame in telling people that I'm on antidepressant drugs. I've absolutely got no shame at all.
Yeah.
You know, I've struggled with my own mental health. I am absolutely clear to my kids that they know I've struggled.
Yeah.
And I talk about it on air, as you've heard me talk about on air. I talk about it on Twitter.
Yeah.
There's no issue. It's not an issue for me, and it's just. I think it's a strength to show a weakness.
Without a doubt. And by doing that, is there part of you that, you know, hopes or knows that someone listening will be in the same position or struggling in some way, and just hearing you say that it's not an issue and you can talk about it and you can get better, and you can seek support? Is that something that drives you as well?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, I've never wanted to be one of these people who has gone off and made a television program about my depression.
Yeah.
Because it's my own personal story and it's not particularly interesting to anybody else.
Yeah.
All I can do is say, I have felt like this. You don't need to know the reasons why. I mean, I've told you the reasons why today, because I don't hide anything, but you don't need to know the reasons why. You just need to know that you're not alone in feeling these things. You're not I'm not the first person. I won't be the last person who's thought about taking my own life, or, you know, who's gone to bed and just wept for 20 hours, or,
Yeah.
you know, it happens to us all, and we can all, no matter who we are, find ourselves in those situations. You know, this is why Facebook is so deeply irritating sometimes, you know, because I remember when I was, I don't know if you do this, right? But when I was feeling particularly low, everywhere I would turn on Facebook, there would be somebody shouting how bloody brilliant their life was. You know, and you kind of go, what? Your life can't be, you know, nobody's life is, we've all got struggles.
Yeah, it's not a true reflection, is it, you know, of everyday life? Going back to the times when you were ill, Wynne, you know, obviously in the end you did seek help, but when you were ill, was there barriers that were stopping you, or you know, actually stopping you talking about it or telling people how you felt?
I felt very conscious going to counsellors because I lived my life in the public eye.
Yeah.
And so I felt very self-conscious about that. And my friends, you know, I've got very few friends, you know, I can count them on one hand really. They know me from, you know, they know the proper me. And I've never shied away from talking about my emotions and how I feel. And, you know, another friend of mine, Rupert Moon, people, and he won't mind me saying this, you know, Rupert played for Wales, and Rupert and we talk about it all the time. We talk about how depression can set in and how we find strength in talking about it with each other, not in a kind of, oh my God, I'm so sad, in a kind of, oh yeah, are you all right, you know, and trying to get to the bottom of what's causing those emotions. And it's very easy for us all to overreact to our own emotions. So what might be a tiny problem for you, I might be able to say, oh, well, look, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And especially in this pandemic, you know, everybody's skint, everybody's careers are going tits up. And it's like, it can be overwhelming. And I know what it's like, you know, when you wake up, there's a really good word, and I'm sure you've come across it, Gareth. It's called anhedonism, right?
Okay.
And it is the polar opposite of hedonism. We've all seen these programs on Channel 4 or whatever, you know, where everybody's going crazy. I could look at the most beautiful view in the world, and when I was at my maximum depression, I could see a problem with everything.
Yeah.
So you'd say, here's £1 million. And my reaction would be, oh God, think of the tax you'd have to pay on that. You know, that's not a fact. But, you know, do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing of being unable to see good for seeing bad.
Yeah, it's the frame of mind it puts you into, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem, when you're in the midst of it, you don't see a way out of it, or that you'll ever feel better again, you know?
No, you don't. That is the thing. You just think, I'm never going to feel like I used to feel. And
Yeah,
that is probably true. You never will feel like you used to feel, but you'll feel different. And it doesn't mean it's not better.
yeah,
It means that it's just different to how it was. My
yeah,
life's very different now to what it was 6 years ago, but it's not worse. It's just, different. I've got a much better connection with the children.
yeah,
I'm, in charge of my own destiny.
yeah.
It's you can find positives in absolutely everything.
You touched on the overthinking, which is a real problem, and especially during lockdown. Now we've got more time on our hands. We're at home a lot more, and like you say, people might be overthinking a lot more. Have you got any tips, or is there anything that you do to try and manage that?
Well, my coping strategy before used to be, open a bottle of wine and see what
Yeah,
happened at the end of that. It doesn't really work. I mean, I still I still socially drink, but I don't drink for my problems. A lot of the time, I will try and distract myself with. I've taken up going to the gym quite a lot. Built just. I haven't even built a gym. I put some weights in my garage. So I go there a lot. I work out. I do a bit of running. I might watch a film or a favorite television program that I know will make me laugh, like The Thick of It or something like that, that I'll go back to time and time again. It's just, and I talk about this, with the kids as well, because my children are 19 and 16, and I think it's a particularly difficult age during this pandemic
yeah,
to be young. I
yeah,
think it's a tough gig. And well, look, every age group's got its own problems for different reasons,
yeah,
but I say to distract yourself, use those distraction techniques, and sometimes if that doesn't work, right, I'll just go. I know this sounds ridiculous, and it probably goes against everything. I'll just go to sleep. I just go to bed and go to sleep, and then tomorrow it feels a whole lot better.
yeah. Well, sleep is very important in managing our mental health, isn't it? And getting the right amount of sleep, because a lot of the time overthinking can cause the opposite. When we're up late at night and we're ruminating, and we're not getting enough sleep. So I think sleep is a very important one there to mention.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but I find if I overthink it, it just becomes worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I have the opposite effect to what CBT. People may be familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, where you kind of strengthen and weaken different parts in the brain. I could never get my head around it, if I'm totally honest. It didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I'm strengthening that negative path by making it go round and round my head all
Yes.
night or all day.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the things that never happened, all of a sudden happened.
Yeah.
So you'd go, oh, right, Gareth went to the shop. Oh my God, Gareth went to the shop and he bought lard. What happens if he bought lard? I could have had a heart attack. And the next thing, I've had a heart attack. Do you know what I mean? And then it's just, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it just gets totally out of control.
It does. Yeah.
That's how my mental health manifests itself. I just go from one scenario and it just keeps building and building and building until basically I'm taking over the world. It's just a ridiculousness, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
it's
I don't know if you do this, Wynne, but I start having arguments with people in my head. So I'll be doing something mundane and I'll start thinking about something and I go off on a tangent. And next thing I'm arguing with someone about an issue that's never going to happen,
yeah,
And that's how easy it spirals out of control.
yeah, yeah. And the next thing you're thinking, and this is what makes it weird. You're like, I'm going to tell them when I see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, what? You've lost your mind. What
Yeah.
is going on?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's when I had my really dark days. You say when I was ill, I still have those moments, and I think it's okay to have those moments.
Yeah.
I liken it to a wave, like a sound wave.
Yeah.
I liken taking the tablets because people who've never taken tablets go, do you lose all your feelings? You don't get sad, therefore you don't get happy.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at it like, before the tablets, my sound wave was going out of control, and all I'm doing is bringing the parameters in. So I'm still sad, but I'm not quite as sad.
Yeah.
And my highs aren't, these, crazy highs that are so high that you lose control.
Yeah, that's a great way of explaining it, actually. The waves, something I definitely relate to, and some days are better than others, and it's managing those downtimes then, isn't it? And knowing that things will get better.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do it, Gareth?
Very similar to you, in fact. Exercise, medication. I've been taking medication for a long time, and that stops me from going too low, so I still have my down days, but I manage it better now with the medication. One of the biggest things for me is exercise. And last year, during the lockdowns and the pandemic, my mental health was getting to a low point. But I signed up to the gym, and I kind of pushed myself to go until I got into a routine, and my well-being just improved massively. And suddenly my outlook on everything was different. So, and that tends to really work for me. It's the balance of the medication, the exercise, and I think having a good support network around you, people you can talk to, whether it's family members, whether it's a friend or a work colleague, just having people you can be honest with and say, oh look, I'm having a really bad day today, and you can just be open and talk about it.
I think people are generally really good as well, and there is no stigma anymore, and nobody's going, have you seen Gareth in number 6, he's off his head. Nobody's really doing that anymore. People are more than aware. If our parents and our grandparents had been able to do that, it would have been just so much better. I know my mother would have, had so many demons in her life that had she been able to, talk it through, it would have been a very, very different outlook.
Yeah. I think that's very much a generational thing, isn't it? Years ago, you didn't talk about your feelings, and especially the British culture of stiff upper lip and all that. You should kind of put a brave face on and get on with it, isn't it? And I think now, and I hope, there's more education about it, and I think the younger generations realize more, the importance of talking about their feelings.
Yeah, it was weird actually, because a guy came up to me in the street about 2 months ago, and he would have been about 75.
Yeah.
He said to me, thank you for talking about your mental health on the radio. I said, all right. He said, yeah, because I feel like that. I feel like that. And he said, and I know my son feels like that. And I've been able to talk to my son about it now. And it's really interesting that, a little conversation. That's why I just think this is a brilliant campaign, because, and I know a good campaign, I've been involved in the best campaign ever. And, it's so good just to have that conversation, even if it's over a garden fence. And it's so hard at the moment. Everybody's got masks on. Everybody looks unapproachable. Everybody, is head down. They don't want to get COVID, which I totally understand. But, looking out for those people is so important.
Yeah, it is. You're right. And I think from your point of view, and the fact that you've got a public profile then, and a lot of followers and that, I think it's fantastic that you're using that and talking about your own problems and issues, like the 75-year-old man who came up to you and said thank you to you. But there will be lots of other people following you who you don't know about, who will have read what you're saying, encouraging people to speak out, and it would have made a difference to them. So I think it's fantastic that you're doing that, Wynne.
No, not at all. It's the it's one of the joys of being able to have a public platform, I guess. And I would encourage anybody watching this really, and instead of ringing, people ring my show every day, and it's like, for one day I would love it if people didn't ring the show but rang somebody else instead. You know, they rang that vulnerable person in their life and just checked up on them, you know, every now and again. I can't believe I even said that, don't ring the show, but you know what I mean? It's just make that time to talk to somebody, make that time. You know, when somebody posts, like I always think, and sometimes I put it, when I post in my profile, you know, hope you're feeling good today, I've had a low day, but please don't respond to me. Respond to somebody else, you know, phone somebody else. We've got our support networks, you know, we happy to talk about it. It's those people that aren't that will bottle it up and bottle it up and bottle it up. And I'm so glad that I had my friends around me when I was at my low, because otherwise it could have been such a different story for me, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's a lovely message, you know, that we can use now on Time to Talk Day. You know, people watching this, listening to this, you know, after it, if you need to talk to someone, you know, go and speak to one of your friends, give someone that call. Or if you're really struggling, obviously, you know, approach your GP and seek support. But you know, if you've got someone you can talk to, then pick up the phone and do it. Or if you think someone out there is struggling, give them that call, you know.
And I suppose there are so many resources out there at the moment that are very aware of what lockdown has done. You know, I've used them myself. I've rung helplines, and the road back is a long road, I guess, and it does undulate. You know, it goes up and it goes down. But as soon as you make that first phone call, whether it's to a mate, whether it's to, you know, Mind, or whether it's to the Samaritans, or whether it's to whoever, you're actually recognizing that problem and making your way back.